I really like to see our kids have a good, solid peer group that can support in a number of ways. And I want this for my other children as well, same thing.
Probably one of the most important things parents can do is expose children as they're growing and developing to a variety of common, normal social situations and experiences, and to include the full breadth of types of social situations that any child would find oneself in.
I hope I one day get married and hopefully have an apartment and be able to live together with my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Talking Together. In this video, we present the real-life experiences, concerns, and goals of some exceptional young people, their parents, and the professionals who serve them. We also demonstrate methods and strategies for teaching about human sexuality.
We want them to be as independent as possible. We want them to have happy and fulfilling lives. We want them to have a work or occupation to the highest level that they can fulfill.
We have talked about sexually transmitted diseases as a group, but I know that she doesn't have the judgment to be able to deal with that at the point where she might be involved sexually. Mm-hmm. So she's not a person who can plan or stop things. Once she gets into a situation, it's very difficult for her to stop it then and make a change or a judgment call on it. So I think that would have to be something that was done by supervision, by just knowing who she was with.
There's still that worry because you want your kids to be safe, and you know, my older daughter, I know she can take care of herself. Sarah, I will always worry about.
It comes back to that whole issue of how much you supervise and how much you don't, how much freedom, safe risk. It comes back to that whole thing, which is throughout our kids' lives. Yeah. The one thing that I keep thinking of is when Megan was little, because she didn't understand a lot of the language things, I didn't explain as completely as I would have for my other children. And I wish now that I had taken the time to do that more consistently before she got to be 10 or 11, where I felt she could really understand the language, because I think it would have helped her. I've done it with some other things, and I think the carryover would have helped her long term.
Just the same thing Louis and Jan said, is you just want them to be as independent as possible and have those social contacts and have relationships. And I hope if Sarah really wants a marriage, that she gets married.
I remember my parents talking to my brother and my sister in a very different way, fully explaining all the details of growing up and becoming a woman or becoming a man, and what to expect and biological changes and all of this, and the full explanation. And what do I get? I get one sentence and that's it.
Treated me with more respect about seeing my boyfriend.
Well, the one thing that I really wished that my parents would have taught me in my younger days are people skills. That way I wouldn't have been trying most of my life to learn them from the beginning.
Letting me, even though they let me make decisions, I wish they let me make more decisions about my girlfriends and let me have more say so.
Being on your own is because my mother was my own mother. My mother was, I'm afraid of being moving out on my own.
Well, I guess my biggest wish is to have a person who I can be eventually married to someday. But that's going to be probably somewhat of a problem.
Why is that?
I haven't found anyone.
Hard to find you.
Yes.
Finding the right boyfriend that would respect me for what I am and not for what other people would say.
I remember 10, 15 years ago when they first started talking at all about, social sexual education with adults with developmental disabilities. This was one of the big things that was emphasized in terms of people needing to learn the difference between what's public and private. And as we were designing a program, it became apparent to us that many people with developmental disabilities have no privacy. There is no private place in their lives. And unfortunately, probably living with a developmental disability probably entails a slightly higher risk. But I think people are better armed to deal with risks and to minimize threats to their well-being if they've had exposure and experiences from which to make good judgments. I think the greatest risk comes from putting somebody into a situation or somebody finding themselves in a situation that they have no frame of reference in terms of what to do. That's when panic sets in. That's when major errors in judgment are made. So while you may in some ways be protecting somebody from risks by not exposing them, if you think in terms of their lifespan and what their likely life experiences are going to be, sooner or later they're going to find themselves in situations that they've been insulated from, and if they've had no opportunity to learn in those situations, they're going to probably be at greater risk for difficulties, if not harm or abuse or other problems.
While many parents fear that talking about sex will encourage sexual activity, research shows us just the opposite. Open, honest communication about sexuality, relationships, reproduction, and our bodies can help delay sexual activity, promote sexual health, and prevent serious problems such as sexual abuse, sexually transmitted infections, and unintended pregnancy. The hard part's getting started. Most of us feel uncomfortable talking about sex, but the earlier you start, the easier it is, and the more you do it, the easier it gets.
What do you like to do?
Movies.
You like to go to movies?
Yeah.
Who would you go with?
My boyfriend.
Would you go with other guys also?
Yeah.
Would you think Matt might get a little bit
No.
mad if you went with
No.
somebody else? No? You don't
No.
think he would? Does Matt go out with other girls?
Yeah.
Who else does he go out with? Do you and Matt like to do other things?
Dances.
Dances? Yeah. I know that you like to really dance. I saw the pictures. You're getting to be a young woman now, and what do you think about the whole idea of hugs and kisses?
Fine with me.
It's fine with you?
Yeah.
Do you ever have to say to Matt, oh, time to stop? Or do you have to say, no, stop and we'll do that later?
Oop.
Oop. What do you think?
Oop, stop.
Do you say that sometimes?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
What do you want to ask about sex?
It feels good.
If it feels good? Yeah, it does feel good. Yeah. Usually it feels good when both people want to have sex together, not when one person does and the other person doesn't. But when both people do and they're loving about it, then it feels good. What questions would you like to ask?
You have sex in bed?
Yes, oftentimes. You can have sex in other places as well. But oftentimes people have
The
it in
couch?
bed. Yeah, couch would work. What else would you like to ask?
You kiss each other?
We do kiss each other.
He tease you?
Does he tease me? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, he teases me a lot. He's quite a teaser. And you also just talked about having sex in your bedroom?
Yeah.
Just by yourself?
Yeah.
And you know where to do that?
Here.
Where?
My room.
In your room. Because it's private. What would happen if you were on a bus or something? Would you do it there?
No.
Yeah, that wouldn't be appropriate, would it? Do you remember some of those things that you learned about in your class? Do you still have those books?
Here.
Do you still look at them?
Here.
Do they have good pictures in them?
Here.
Did you have any questions about the pictures? No? Anything else that you can think of?
No.
Okay.
Treat sex like any other subject, honestly, objectively, calmly. Tell about your own experiences, good and bad, and explain that sexual feelings are normal and healthy. Don't worry about telling your child too much. Information doesn't hurt, it helps.
Hey Dee, do you want to go to the senior prom this year?
Yeah.
Is there a girl in your class that would be a good one to take, that you'd like to take to the prom?
Nope.
There isn't?
Yeah.
I think I've seen a couple of nice girls in your class. How about Carrie?
Sure.
Would you know how to ask her to go with you? Would you know what to say?
Write an invitation.
Write an invitation? That's a good idea. What would you write in the invitation?
I'd write, Dear Carrie.
Yeah.
Come to the prom with me.
Yeah.
You'll be my date. Signed, Dimitri.
That sounds pretty good. You can put your arm around me like this and say, okay, good night, Carrie.
Hey, good night, Carrie. Mwah.
Thank you for a good time.
Okay.
However you want to hold hands, okay? Like this?
Yeah.
Okay, and you have your hand here. Okay, and this is good. You don't squeeze too close. And then dance a little bit, Dimitri. And you dance a little bit, okay? All right, good. And then, Dimitri, this will be fun, all right? This will be fun. Okay, keep your hand there, okay? Now, pretend that the dance is all over, okay? And now you're walking Carrie to her door. And you get to Carrie's door and it's time to say, good night, Carrie, I had a wonderful time. Then we give a gentle hug.
Okay.
Is it a squeeze or a gentle hug?
A gentle hug.
Okay, so we get a gentle hug and a gentle kiss, okay?
Okay.
So here's a gentle hug, okay? And you say good night and that's it. And you have a wonderful time.
Good night.
Okay?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about you going to school? You know, you start school again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're going to walk yourself to school, or am I going to walk you to school?
Me.
So when you walk to school and a stranger pulls up to you, what are you supposed to do?
Wait.
Wait for what?
To let him go.
Let him go. If a stranger pulls up and say, hey, little girl, I have some candy for you, what are you supposed to do?
Say no.
Are you supposed to scream, or are you just supposed to just say no?
No.
Okay, you say no and then you scream, right? Or you run and tell an adult, right?
Yeah.
The best time to talk about sexual subjects is when they come up. Like when your child asks you where babies come from, or when you see a sexual scene on television. We call these teachable moments, and they're a great opportunity to start talking. Be specific when discussing sexual subjects, and use pictures, books, or models to illustrate what you're talking about. Give short, simple explanations, and ask questions to check for understanding. It's also important to talk about feelings when discussing sexual matters. Discussing feelings and providing reassurance is just as important as giving information or teaching skills.
I'm here to share some information today with you about basic reproductive anatomy. And I brought a chart here that shows the uterus and part of the female reproductive system. So do you know what this is right here? All women, we have a uterus. This is a uterus here, okay? This looks really big on the paper, but the uterus for a woman is about the size of your fist or of a small pear. Okay, so and all girls and all women, we all have uterus, okay? And this is the vagina here. And extending out from the sides of the uterus are the fallopian tubes. And they look really big here, but in real life, the fallopian tubes are about the size of 2 human hairs. They're very, very little. And at the end of the fallopian tubes, we have these little fingers, and they're called fimbria on both sides. See? And these are our ovaries. And inside of our ovaries, all women were born with sex cells, or we sometimes just call them eggs. And every month, one of the eggs comes out of the ovary into the fallopian tube and travels down the fallopian tube here. and it lives about 24 hours. What happens, do you think, if maybe if a woman has had intercourse or sex and her partner has ejaculated in the vagina? What might happen if there's a little egg right here and there's sperm in her body?
They get pregnant.
Yeah, the woman could get pregnant. That's what could happen. That's what could happen because when people have intercourse and the penis is inserted into the vagina, those sperm are really good swimmers and they're going to swim up into the uterus. And if they find that little egg, they're going to fertilize it, and then it's going to move down here and implant into the uterine lining. What's neat about the uterus is it is small like your hand, but it expands. So if a woman is pregnant, it kind of works like a water balloon. It'll get bigger there. And what happens is if a woman does get pregnant, the baby grows inside of the uterus. And when she has a vaginal delivery, the uterus opens, the cervix opens here. And the cervix is the base of the uterus, and it comes out the vagina. If the woman doesn't get pregnant, though, what happens is when this little egg comes into the fallopian tube, there's a chemical that's released in our body, and it causes for a big, thick, rich, like blood lining in the uterus. And so if the egg comes down here and this woman has not had sex or isn't pregnant, the uterine lining will come off the wall of the uterus. And what will the girl have, or woman?
Period.
Or menstruation, that's what we call it. And the blood will come through the uterus here and come out of the vagina, and that's why women, we have to use sanitary napkins or tampons, which are inserted inside the vagina to get the blood. Usually girls start their period somewhere between the age, I would say between 9 and 14 now, 14 years. Sometimes girls will get their periods later on when they're 16 years old. And what we know is once a young woman is sexually active, we have this thing called pelvic exam.
We're going to talk a little bit about prevention. Again, you have mentioned the best ways to prevent getting an STI or HIV is to get tested, talk to your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use a condom every single time. And I'm going to show you, I know this is a really funny thing, but I have this model penis here, this little demonstration, and I'm going to show you the correct way to put on a condom. When you take a condom out of its packet, you'll see that it looks like a little hat. That's one way to remember. If you're having oral sex with somebody, it's important to use an unlubricated condom, because then you're not getting that lubrication in your mouth. If you're going to be having anal or vaginal sex with someone, you use one that's lubricated. And you want to roll it down over an erect penis, because if it's over a soft penis, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So you roll it over an erect penis all the way to the very base. Now, you're ready to go. There's really something that's really important that I stress to everybody, is that after you're done having intercourse or sex, it's so important to take the penis out of the vagina or out of the anus before someone loses their erection. Because what happens if the person is not hard anymore or erect? What can happen with the condom?
It can slip off and stuff.
That's exactly right. It can slip off, and it can cause a pregnancy. You can also expose yourself to sexually transmitted infections. These two methods, the condom and the female condom, are the only ways to effectively, not 100%, nothing's 100%, but these are the only two ways to really try and prevent sexually transmitted infections as well as pregnancy. Okay? So these are the only two birth control methods that do both things. With the female condom, there's a ring at the bottom, and you can kind of squeeze it together like that. Before a woman has intercourse, what she needs to do is take this ring, pinch it between her fingers. Let's say this is the vagina. She's going to put it up into the vagina until it goes all the way up and it can't go any further. After a woman is through having intercourse, she can simply just take it out of the vagina like that and throw it away. You can only use a condom and a female condom one time. This is called a dental dam, and a dental dam is basically just a big piece of latex. Why don't you hold it? Just kind of pull it apart. This goes over the outside of the vulva, so the outside of the vagina. This is used during oral sex on a woman, or oral sex around the anus.
Well, George, I wanted to go over the men's reproductive system so that you understand this. I know you know a lot of this already, so maybe just we'll review some of this. You probably had it in school and stuff a while back. But So this picture here shows a man's reproductive system down in here. And down here are his testicles, right, which produce sperm, which is necessary for a man to have children if he wants to someday. Do you remember what this is called? The kind of sac that holds it, starts with S? Scrotum.
Scrotum.
Right, very good. And then this is his penis, I know you know that.
Yeah.
These tubes carry sperm around out through the penis if a man gets an erection where his penis fills with blood and sticks up, which is necessary for him to be able to have sexual intercourse and make children.
Mm-hmm.
Up here is, do you remember what that's called? Starts with B. It's where the urine or pee is stored. Starts with B. Bladder.
Bladder.
Bladder, right. And that also sends urine through the same tube. This picture shows a man's reproductive system where the testicles are producing sperm. Those are those little wiggly guys on each side. And they come through and mix with some other stuff here in the prostate gland. That's that round thing right there. And then they come out. It's called an ejaculation, where the sperm shoots out.
Yeah.
And again, that's how babies get made from the man's point of view. If a man wants to never have children, then these tubes can be cut here and here by a doctor. And then the sperm can't get through and he would never be able to have children, right? There are other ways. You told me earlier, what's another way a man can have sex without getting a woman pregnant?
Using condom.
Right, right. Here's the condom on the man's erect penis. The sperm are coming around here and they come out, but they get caught in the condom, right? So they won't get inside the woman's body and won't make her pregnant. You just take the condom off and throw it away when you're done.
Yeah.
Like if you had an infection, say in here, the germs could, if you didn't have a condom on, they could get through and give her the same infection. So condoms do two things. They keep a woman from getting pregnant, and they keep germs or infections from spreading from one person to the other person. So very important to use if you're going to have sex with another person. While sex is a wonderful and natural part of life, it can have serious health and social consequences. Role-playing or practicing different ways of handling common and uncommon situations can help prepare your child for a variety of circumstances he or she may encounter. Playing what would you do if games can be fun and valuable. Teaching good judgment and decision-making skills can be especially challenging. Explaining the specific conditions where and when certain behaviors are safe or appropriate is important. For example, explaining that masturbation is okay in private settings such as the bedroom or bathroom, but not in public settings, can help prevent problems. People with more severe cognitive disabilities may need closer supervision to ensure their safety and appropriateness.
So Damon, what are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of doing sex for the first time.
And when you think about having sex with somebody, what are the things that you think about? What is important to you in a relationship?
Trust, honesty, and commitment.
And what kind of commitment do you want from that person?
Like, I don't want him to be going out with other girls.
So it's important to you that he's with you and only with you?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you know somebody that where there is trust and there is that commitment, but you know that that person has been with other people in the past, what kinds of steps would you take to protect yourself?
I mean, if he really loved me, I would get tested.
You would want him to get tested?
Yeah.
Tested for what?
For diseases.
Okay. And what would you do in the meantime?
Wait.
You would choose to wait?
Yeah.
And how could you protect yourself if you changed your mind and you decided that you wanted to engage in safe sex with that person while waiting for the test results?
Use a condom.
Good answer. Sounds like you've given us a lot of thought, Jamie. Good for you. It's an important decision.
I'm afraid that my girlfriend will turn on me and go back to another boyfriend.
That I would take a test on an HIV test again.
Right.
And I can't do it right now because I'm scared about anything else right now in my life. and my parents.
Well, I'm scared about my ex-boyfriend here in Santa Barbara, the way he treated me.
Touching women, especially someone that I don't know, and get arrested, go to jail.
Okay, Tim, you wanted to talk?
Yes, about what happened to me a couple of years ago with my I came home on a summer vacation when I was at work. It was a night just at home, and he wanted me to come by to come sit with him on the couch, and that's what I did. But then it came to be the other thing he did to me. He did some sexual things to me. He had me pull my pants down, and he did some sexual things to my private part. And I was scared to tell anyone.
Okay, Tim, I'm really glad you came out and told me.
When a person shares a sexual abuse experience, it's important to stay calm, listen carefully, and be supportive. Explaining that the person reporting is not at fault and that help will be provided is also important. Non-consensual sexual contact should be reported to the police or other authorities. Care staff are legally required to report suspected abuse. Professional counseling may also be helpful. While this case involves same-sex abuse, sexual abuse is most often committed by heterosexuals known to the victim.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for coming out and telling me, Tim. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You did the right thing.
Thank you.
My name is Rick, and I was diagnosed with HIV when I was 26 years old. I'm 29 now, and for the last 3 years, things have been really difficult. I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS 6 months after I was diagnosed with HIV. Living with AIDS is very hard. It controls your life. The medication schedule that I'm on controls your life. There are drugs that I have to take every 8 hours, every 12 hours, some on an empty stomach, some on a full stomach. I have to constantly know when I'm supposed to take these medications, and I can't be spontaneous like I used to be. As parents, you have the responsibility to inform your children about the risks that they take if they're not responsible in their actions and their decisions. It can happen if you're not careful, if you participate in the risky behaviors. There's not any specific group that this virus attacks. All it needs is a human body, a human cell. It doesn't care if you're male, female, black, white, or what religion you are. All it sees is a warm body and a place to live and spread itself. It just takes that one time to change your life, and it has definitely changed my life. It's your responsibility to make the right decision, and it's a big decision that you have to make. Think about it. Think about yourself. Think about the rest of your life. Think about your family and your friends.
I can't fathom any parent not talking to their kids about it. Because it's not just a gay disease, it's not a black disease. This has no color lines and no racial barrier. It doesn't matter your race or religion or your age. Babies, parents, businessmen, all types of people get this disease. Yeah. Be open and honest. Be totally open and honest, because if we knew then what we knew now, a lot of things would have been different. My parents never really sat me down and talked about sex. I had to go out there and find out myself. If my parents would have talked to me about sex, I don't think I would have ended up in this position. You gotta be open. You gotta be. I know it's scary and I know it's fearful. I know it's hard because you You know, it's hard to acknowledge the fact that your child is not really that child anymore, that one that you used to play baseball with or basketball with or bake cakes or whatever. But that child is now grown up and wants to experience life, and before they do that, you need to prepare them, period. You know, it's just like when you try to teach them how to ride that bike. You got to take it in steps. Before you have sex, think about your consequences. Because a condom is not 100% guaranteed. It can always bust. That's one. You know, two, is it worth having sex with this person? Is your life worth it? You know, is this person clean or safe? What do you know about this person? Yeah, do you know this person's background? Do you know if this person's a drug user or not? Look at me, I look fine, but I'm HIV positive. And just because a person looks fine doesn't mean, you know, that they're okay. If he's not willing to use that condom, even with the condom, I would tell her to ask him to go get tested, just for her sanity. And if he doesn't want to, then it's not worth sleeping with that person. You know, it's not just pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases out there anymore. There's a thing called AIDS. There's a thing called HIV. And HIV might as well be AIDS if you ask me, because sooner or later you're going to end up with it. Just ask questions. And if anything is uneasy to you, if it feels weird, go with your gut instinct. Don't go beyond your instincts. Trust me, if your gut's telling you something's out of whack, listen to it. Because if I would have, I wouldn't be here like this now.
You had a feeling at the time?
I had a big feeling that something was wrong, but the fear of loneliness at that time, it really was overbearing. See, it's hard for parents to talk to their kids, and it's hard for kids to think about their parents in this position. No matter what age they are. You have to cry, honey. This is the hardest part about being HIV positive. Because you have to think about this person's feelings. And I'm just, who's ever listening to me or whoever's watching this video, you think about this moment for a minute. Then you think about the consequences that you take in life.
While there are some serious risks associated with sexual activity, it's important to keep a balanced perspective on sex. Most of us experience sex as a wonderful and rewarding part of life, usually in the context of a mutually supportive, loving relationship. It is our responsibility as parents and professionals to empower the young people we serve to be socially fulfilled, sexually healthy human beings.
View social learning as, as an important part of learning as any other educational, component of a child's development. As important as learning how to brush his teeth and tie his shoes, or do reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's important, in fact, probably the most important over the long haul of a person's lifespan, that they learn how to deal with social situations, they learn how to read social cues, they learn how to make spot decisions in social context of how does one deal with this situation, and is this a situation that's safe and okay to stay in, or is this something that I ought to get out of as quickly as possible? The highest risk comes from somebody who is insulated and protected from social exposure and experience, who doesn't have the opportunity to learn the tools and the discernment to deal with different types of situations. I just don't think it can be emphasized enough that people need to have as much social experience in as many different situations as possible. It's the way they're going to learn to be effective, functional members of a complex, socially diverse society.
I want us to last for a long time.
I want us to still get married.
Right now I'm hoping to get a new home or an apartment for myself.